Oh, all right. We got about 6 weeks left of the regular season, and I'm thinking there's quite a bit of free agents right now that would be good additions to some playoff teams. So I'm going to kind of go over these guys. I'm going to give their stats from last season, or some of them their stats from this season, and kind of say why I think that they should be on an NFL team right now. And they should only sign with contenders at this point in the season because there's no point of signing with the Giants just to, you know what I mean? Like, there's no point for a bad team to go and sign one of these guys. So these are going to be teams that I think contenders should go after that can help them make a late season and a playoff push. So starting off here with quarterback, I'm going to say Ryan Tannehill. Now he's going to be a backup quarterback, obviously, at this point, especially on a contender. But I do think he is a very serviceable backup. He wasn't very good as a starter last year, but he wasn't, necessarily horrible either. He had like 1,600 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 7 picks. Not a great ratio there, but I do think in the right system, he's a very solid backup quarterback. Then we got PJ Walker. He wasn't very good last year either. Only 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions in the few games he did play. But I do again think he could be a decent backup, or at least like a third string quarterback. Kind of give some quarterback depth just in case teams get in really bad situations. And then Blaine Gabbert, he started one game last year for the Chiefs. They ended up winning that game. He didn't play particularly well. He had like 180 yards, 1 pick, 0 touchdowns. But I'm still serviceable backup. I feel like could be somebody that can come in the game and not lose you the game at least. And some teams that I think are interested in these guys, or that would be the Ravens, Chargers, and Dolphins. All of these three guys were kind of linked to Daniel Jones after he just signed to the Vikings after getting cut by the Giants. And that's what kind of prompted this video, is because I saw Daniel Jones be a free agent, and plenty of these teams were interested in him. So I'm like, what other free agents could be useful for these contenders? But yeah. Next up will be our running backs. Jerick McKinnon is one. He played for the Chiefs last season, the last few seasons actually. He had about 60 rushing yards, but he had almost 200 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. So overall, last season he had 250 yards and 5 touchdowns, which is definitely serviceable enough that I feel like he could be on a team right now for sure. Latavius Murray, kind of same thing. He had 300 rushing yards last year and 4 touchdowns. Also had another 119 receiving yards. So over 400 total yards with 4 touchdowns. He was a solid player last year. He should be on a team. And then Royce Freeman is going to be my next guy here. He had about 320 yards in 14 games and 2 touchdowns there. Again, he's a decent running back. I feel like he could be. None of these guys are going to be RB1s, probably not even RB2s, but they could easily be RB3s on a lot of teams in the league right now. And the best fits that I have here are the Bucks, the Saints, and the Packers. Next up for wide receivers, we're going to go Michael Thomas. That's a pretty obvious choice. Last season he had 450 yards and 1 touchdown in only 10 games played. So averaging 45 yards a game is pretty solid. He was on pace to get like 700, 800 yards last season if he would have played the whole season. Obviously, one big thing with him is injury concerns, but signing him at this point in the season, you sign him now, you give him 2-3 weeks of practice before he actually gets on your active roster, and then he plays starting week 15 or week 16, and you would assume, hopefully, or at least hope for, that he can, finish the last few weeks of the regular season and have a good playoff push without getting injured. Next up is going to be Hunter Renfrow, another popular choice, popular guy that's been talked about so far this season. He only had 255 yards last year and 0 touchdowns in a whole 17-game season. So there's a reason that he's not currently on an NFL team. But I do think in the right situation, he could be a serviceable guy. He has good catch percentage, so he's going to be reliable, at least in that aspect. Then we got Byron Pringle. Last year he had 161 yards on 14 receptions, so not really too much last year for him either, but he's pretty fast, so he could be a potential deep threat for some teams because he does have the speed to be able to do so. And then some potential fits here would be the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Bucks. Next up is our tight ends. I'm going to have Logan Thomas here. Last year he was pretty good. He had just shy of 500 total yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. Very serviceable for playing 16 games, having 55 catches, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. I'm not sure why he's not on an NFL team right now, but that is also going to be the only tight end I have on this list. There's not many others that I think really did anything last year. But yeah, the best fits for Logan Thomas will be the Chiefs, Lions, and Eagles. Chiefs already have two tight ends in Travis Kelce and Noah Gray, but they've gone through like three different third string tight ends because they've all just gotten injured. So getting Logan Thomas as the third string tight end for Kansas City would be a pretty good tight end three. Next up is offensive linemen. I'm going to go over one tackle, one guard, and one center. So the tackle here is going to be Donovan Smith. He played for the Chiefs. Last season. He played 98% of the snaps and only had 6 penalties in 12 games. So not a heavily penalized guy, but still a little bit higher than you would probably hope for. But he's still reliable, at least for a depth at that position. Then you got Michael Jordan for the for offensive guard. He was on the Patriots this year. And actually had 96% snap percentage, only 2 penalties in 11 games, and for some reason he got cut. I'm assuming the Patriots cut him because he like asked to be cut and wants to be on a contender, because otherwise it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to cut him. And then you got Mason Cole as a center. He was on the Steelers or something, I believe, last year. He played 100% of the snaps, had 3 penalties in 17 games. So still no very low penalty guy. Playing the entire season, every single snap for I think it was the Steelers last season. I'm not sure why he's not on the NFL roster. Best fits for some of these guys, I also don't really have anything there because I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to say what teams need a offensive lineman. It's well, if you watch the games, you might know, but I didn't really like. If you watch every single team, you can tell that they need this position, but I don't have all that knowledge for all these guys, so I don't really have a best fits here. Next up is going to be defensive tackle. I got Mike Purcell. I believe he was on the Broncos last year. Played 16 games, had 25 tackles and 5 QB hits, as well as 3 pass deflections. So he's a decent, could be a decent depth piece at the defensive tackle position. That's also going to be the only D tackle I have on this list. There's a lot of like other D linemen, but they're like more defensive edge guys. I have the Dolphins, Chargers, and Vikings as the best fits here. Then we got edge players here. I got James Houston. He played 8 games this season for the Lions, had 8 tackles, 2 quarterback hits, and 1 sack. Not insane numbers, but he just got cut, I believe, this week. So I think other teams could still be interested in him for his services this season. Shaq Lawson, he was pretty solid last year in 16 games, had 13 tackles and 7 quarterback hits. Again, not a very high tackle guy, but as long as he's getting pressure, like he had every other game he was hitting the quarterback at least once. So he's providing some solid pressure there off the edge. And then you got Bruce Irvin. He only played 2 games last season, but he had 1 tackle and 1 sack with 2 quarterback hits. So getting 1 sack in 2 games is pretty solid. 2 quarterback hits in 2 games is pretty solid as well. He provided a lot of pressure in his 2 games that he played. I feel like he could do that this year as well. Best fits here are going to be the Ravens, Chargers, and Niners. Then we go off to the interior linebacker position, so basically middle linebacker, but depending on what set you have, you technically have like 2 middle linebackers. But yeah, this is going to be Shaq Leonard. Last year he played 14 games. He had 88 tackles and 1 sack. So 88 tackles in 14 games is very good. That's like 6 tackles a game. Then we got Deion Jones here. Last year he played 13 games, had 35 tackles, 1 sack, and 6 pass deflections. So those are pretty good pass deflections. Are kind of underrated stat. He had quite a bit of those. Also, he had roughly 2 to 3 tackles a game, which is pretty solid as well. Then you got Blake Martinez. He only played 1 game last season, but he had 4 tackles in that 1 game. So I was kind of surprised too that he did not really get any more production or any more playing time last season when he had 4 tackles in his 1 game that he played. The best fits for these guys are going to be the Texans, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks. Next up for cornerback, I got Xavier Howard. Last season he was pretty good when he did play. 13 games, 45 tackles, 12 pass deflections, and 1 interception. 12 pass deflections in 13 games is a very good stat. Next up is J.C. Jackson. He played 10 games. He had 28 tackles, 9 pass deflections. Again, 9 pass deflections in 10 games. Very good stat. He also had 1 interception. Then I got Patrick Peterson, who he played 17 games, had 42 tackles, no pass deflections for him, but he did get a couple interceptions that season. So all 3 of these guys, I feel like, could be very well make an impact on some of these playoff contending teams that are kind of struggling in the corner department, and those are going to be the Colts, the Chiefs, and the Cardinals. And next up is going to be safety. This is the last group I got here. I got Jaron Kearse, who last year played. Oh, sorry, I don't want to keep going. Jaron Kearse last year played 16 games, had 72 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 4 pass deflections, and 1 interception. So he averaged almost like 4.5 tackles a game, 4 pass deflections, and 4 tackle for loss. Very good as a safety. He could easily be a depth guy currently. Micah Hyde last season, 14 games, he had 54 tackles, he had 7 pass deflections and 2 interceptions. Again, he's kind of flying around there, getting 7 pass deflections in 14 games is pretty solid. Then we got Eddie Jackson, who also played this season. He played 9 games this year for the Ravens, and then the Ravens just cut him this week, I believe. He had 30 tackles, 1 quarterback hit, 1 pass deflection this season. Not great numbers by any means, but very solid numbers. I feel like he could easily um, find his way to a different team, by next week. And best fits for these guys are going to be the Chargers, the Vikings, and the Chiefs. That is going to be it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back probably later today or tomorrow for my NFL Power Rankings list. And goodbye.